And welcome to the Daily Space Weather. We've put up 2 videos today on YouTube, so make sure you check those out. We've also uploaded some new music. If you want to check that out, do a search for Golden Cat Productions. 3 new tracks uploaded yesterday. You'll find them all over the internet. Let's take a look at the sun, as we're wont to do most days. This track's called Gem Cutter, by the way. You'll find it all over the internet: Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, YouTube. It's all over the place. Anyway, here's some composite imagery for all of you stargazers out there. That's from the SDO, and we've seen a slight dip here in solar activity since yesterday. Radio flux is now at 167 solar flux units, and we'll get more in-depth into the solar wind parameters, coronal holes, sunspots, coronal mass ejections, and more. Here's the earthly geospace out to about 12 Earth diameter for the past 4 hours, expressed in magnetohydrodynamic pressure or nanopascals. It's all based on the space weather modeling framework. Things fairly steady here at the moment in terms of the pressure environment around the planet. That was Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. It's modeled in nanotesla. Ground magnetic perturbations, geospace delta V, changes to Earth's B field over the past 4 hours. We did see a brief period of geomagnetic unrest late last night. We'll cover it next. There's your KP index. Well, it was early this morning, not late last night, just after midnight there. The first 3 hours of the day, some geomagnetic unrest. Haven't really had time to worry about whether or not there are auroral imagery on Twitter or not. And let us know in the comments if you use Twitter, if you found that the platform is suddenly fixed because Elon Musk has bought it. I find that it's just as pathetic as it was before Elon, quote, bought, end quote, it. Let's move on to the real-time solar wind. So we've seen a change in instruments here, this sudden uptick in the density. That's typical when we see a solar wind density drop all the way down to 1. There's a tendency to switch which instrument we're using there. There at that moment, switching from the ACE to the Discover, you can see this green line turning blue. That's the changeover to the other spacecraft. Anyway, current conditions showing up here as about 6.5 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, solar wind speed just getting below 500 kilometers per second here as we see a slow subsiding of a long duration series of coronal hole high-speed streams. One thing we did see here also was a shift in the BZ. See that red line there? That's a sudden shift into positive territory. And this strong negative BZ signal is the main feature that caused that geomagnetic unrest. That right there. Continuing on, the GOES magnetometer, you're seeing pretty low highs and low lows as we forecasted yesterday, and that's just because of being able to understand how to interpret the Gong 2 data, which we'll show next. That's the 3-day chart. You can see some interesting divergences here from the readings on the GOES 16 versus the GOES 17. Keep in mind they are at a slightly different latitude and a slightly different longitude. And you can tell that based on these N's and M's. Those stand for noon and midnight local time for the given satellite. So here's the heliospheric current sheet. And this is the data that we used to show that we're going to have lower readings on the GOES magnetometers. That's what happens when you immerse yourself in the data, folks. You end up with information you may not have even asked for. That's the rabbit hole of science, folks. The rabbit hole of science is that we ask questions about nature, and we typically just receive more questions, sometimes answers to questions asked, but regularly answers to questions not asked. So Earth remains in a South Pole current sheet there. Nothing too exciting going on as far as that goes, but there's the line of sight view. We've got new sunspots having risen in the east. We'll get to it in a minute. First, coronal holes. They're super important as to the solar cycle progression. The solar polar field reversal process is evident when we look at coronal holes. You can see some fairly decently defined transequatorial ones showing up here in the eastern hemisphere. shown there in red. And let's take a look at it from the SDO. And these are going to get better and better defined as the days roll on here. There are some sunspots mixed in there, and that will make them a little bit less obvious in these wavelengths. They are indeed there, though. The polarity of the light coming out of the sun doesn't lie. Although some phony scientists do. Let's move on to sunspots. So, likelihood of major flares, very high. Sunspot 3017 and Sunspot 3014, 3014 and 3017. Those two sunspots are quite magnetically complex. They're both beta gamma class sunspots. 3014 is also ginormous. Several umbrae there larger than the Earth, or close to the size of the Earth at least. And again, some new sunspot groups rising here. So this is Sunspot 3020, I believe, right here on the limb. And once again, likelihood of large flares, very high. You can see making it all the way up to 12 separate named sunspot groups there on the flare probability monitor. Here's a visualization of that in 1700 angstroms. Once again, most likely location of solar flares is out of this region right here. And as these approach the limb, they will become more and more likely to produce major flares. Again, the radio flux is still at 167 solar flux units, so very high. If that's the new low, that's a very high low on the radio flux. So we've already streamed one video live to Twitch, and we actually uploaded our first daily space weather video because of the interesting earthquakes and interesting information about ultra-low velocity zones. Make sure you check that out if you haven't. It'll be on YouTube as well as on Twitch. We regularly stream live to Twitch because it's such a good, well-designed software platform. Almost like smashamash.com/smashteam. So we still have Patreon. You can still contribute to us that way. There's new content coming. Oh, and by the way, we're going to be releasing the information about the mechanism that drives the solar sunspot cycles and solar polar field reversal cycles for Gold Smash Team members. So that's going to be that's how we're going to write the paper. We're going to write it right on smashamash.com/smashteam. The paper that explains the solar polar field reversal and solar sunspot cycles. That's part of our effort to make Earth not suck again. So it's up to you. I'm wearing the hat. You can see the hat right there. There it is. Make Earth not suck again. If you've noticed, it's been sucking the past couple of years. Do you demand accountability? Do you demand accountability like we do? Have you noticed that the suckage on planet Earth is largely caused by terrible decisions made by bureaucrats who don't have your best interests in mind, in heart, and whatever? Are they making decisions based on corporatism? Let us know in the comments what you think. I'm pretty sure we're still allowed to ask questions on YouTube. Who knows? Maybe this video will get banned. Let's just see what happens, but in any case, I believe in personal responsibility. That's why we created the design, Make Earth Not Suck Again. It's up to you, not giant bureaucracies that can't even get out of their own way. Make Earth Not Suck Again. Do your part. Pick up some merch. Tell your friends and foes. It's a conversation starter. And I still want to see an outfit consisting of the leggings and the A-line dress. I won't be wearing that myself, though. It might be a little bit too provocative. You can find links to all that at smashamash.com, as well as links to all of our social media sites. Thanks to everybody who interacts on all of those social media sites. You can find links to our YouTube channel, Twitter, Gab, PayPal, Minds, a permanent invite to our Discord chat. If you want to send an instant message, do it on Discord, and welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Also the Instagram, Locals, Facebook group, links to the Smash Team, links to the YouTube channel, and graphical link to the Redbubble shop. All there on the homepage. Again, welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Welcome to the proton flux data. It's been flatlined here. No relativistic particles have shown up in quite a while. Also underperforming in terms of flares. The sun is at a C-class level of background output, though. So that's pretty interesting. Solar cycle 25, it is full of activity. So here's a great wavelength through which to view solar flares. 94 angstroms from the SDO. One of the most common ones you'll see all over the internet when there are major flares. The past 24 hours, we haven't seen any. Don't be surprised to see some. Again, especially from these areas. Let's do a star chart. It's from in-the-sky.org. It's where I go for my star charts. I just put in my location here in Lehigh Valley. I face mine to the south because I'm currently facing the south. That's the direction of the ecliptic for everybody in the northern hemisphere, which is the yellow line here. That's the ecliptic, the path the sun will take across the sky. And the blue line is the galactic plane. Let's move on to a planetary forecast for the solar system. Here's where stuff is now. Here's where things will be in a week, as we're about 8 days from our next new moon. Shout out to all of our reverse vampires. Our reverse werewolves, rather. Let us know if you're a reverse werewolf in the comments. Next, we'll move on to coronagraphs. Here's some highly detailed imagery from the Soho Lasco C2. And let's take a moment to look at the Stereo A coronagraph as well. That's located at Lagrange 5. The Soho Lasco spacecraft is located here at Lagrange 1. We got the C3 on the right, and we paused it here to show this great and deceptive coronal mass ejection. You can see it's on the far side of the sun. Earth would be off in this direction from Stereo A, on this line, out toward where my arrow's located. You can see this CME on the far side of the sun. It's got a great shape to it. It looks like the arrow of Apollo or something. And you can see here, it looks almost like a halo eruption, like it might be earthly directed, but it couldn't be farther from the truth. It is certainly not earthly directed. And let's just let this play through here for your viewing pleasure. Stereo A Core 2 coronagraph on the left, Soho Lasco C3 coronagraph on the right. From the perspective of the imagery on the right, Earth would be behind you, about 1 million miles behind you. And that's near where the ACE and Discover make their solar wind measurements also. Those are all being measured at Lagrangian point 1. On the left, Stereo A, it's located a few weeks behind Earth, orbitally speaking, but it sees space weather ahead of Earth. Hence the term Stereo A. It's viewing the part where space weather rises, the eastern limb. And that's about where it's time to close out this video. How about one more series of images from the SDO? There's your 171 angstroms plus colorized magnetogram. Thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. We'll see you soon at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. As I sign off from the Smash News Network, may that solar wind be at your back.